The first appointment. The first appointment is super important. It's basically where the sale is made, even though you're typically not asking for the sale. How you impress people, and I'm sure you've heard first impressions are a big deal. They matter significantly. First impressions are very much integrated in this first appointment. So I want you guys to really understand that it is highly crucial that we have an excellent first appointment with every person that you talk to. I want you to know a couple of things about the preface to this first appointment. So generally, I do a 2-appointment close. The first call is fact-finding, gathering a bunch of information, letting them know I'm the professional there to help them about all of their needs, and we'll go through how I present that here in a second. And the second appointment is all about making recommendations and then actually asking for the business and asking for the sale. So that's generally how I do it. Now, with that in mind, there are some appointments or prospects that you'll talk to in your career that you can diagnose pretty quickly as you have little to no opportunity, and for these folks, you may want to try and attempt closing on the very first appointment. These are not for the million-dollar cases. I want you to know that if people have $50 a month and they want to start a retirement account, that these first appointments can be the only appointment if you decide to go through all of the information with them that they're going to need to make an informed decision on that first appointment. So I really break these up, and you have a lot of leeway and flexibility, and generally I will do 2-appointment close, but I want you to know for the people that do have multi-millions of dollars that sometimes we will use a 3 or 4 appointment approach. My first 2 appointments are going to be about the same in those 3 or 4 appointments. It's how I add the 3rd and 4th appointment onto everything, but I'll show you how I do this in a 2-appointment close when prospects generally let me. So there's a couple of important pieces that I mentioned for the first appointment here, and I really want to go through those, so let's dig in. During a first appointment, you want to, wherever you got this person's name and number from, whether it was a referral or whether this is a lead that you bought or whether this is an ongoing commitment of you working this industry, I want you to know that that's going to be a part of this first appointment presentation. I'm going to use it on the basis of I work with people on their pensions and retirement planning. You may do it on the basis of you help them out with Medicare or health insurance or property and casualty and comprehensive financial advising. So whatever it happens to be, you're adding on the retirement planning or the comprehensive financial advising in addition to your main line, or in addition to however you got this person's name and number and however they got put on your calendar, or if you put them on the calendar it was on the basis of mortgage protection or final expense or property and casualty or Medicare or ACA or whatever your niche is. It should be on the basis of we're going to tackle that and I'll help you with all of these other things. So it's really important that you set the stage for that. So how I do that is I go through and we will give you an editable template that looks very similar to this. So if you pull this up during this video, you'll be able to reference it and look at the key pieces for it. We'll have it pop up here, but there's a download section in both the Facebook group, and we can send this to your email as well as an editable version, so you can edit it for whatever your needs are. If you are not talking about pension, if people are not in a pension system, I delete that word and just say something like guaranteed income sources, and that'll include Social Security and anything else that they might receive in the future. And other than that, this is a pretty solid first page. And so I say what we're going to go over is the retirement circle, and inside there are a bunch of important pieces to retirement planning. So it's going to be your guaranteed lifetime income streams. It'll be, for me, I go over your pension and Social Security. And if you haven't done these calculations before, I'll be able to help you calculate the age at which you can retire with full retirement benefits and the dollar amount of money that you'll receive on a monthly basis at that time. Your pension plus Social Security will combine for your guaranteed base income, meaning once you start collecting those checks, you'll get it for the rest of your life. And if you haven't decided when is best to take those, I'll be able to help make some recommendations for you on your personal situation on when it's best to start receiving those. In addition to that, for most people, that's not enough money to live on, so that's why we have these supplemental retirement accounts, and they come in two forms. They come in the blue quadrant on this circle, and they come in the green quadrant on this circle. In the blue quadrant here, we put in pre-tax dollars to these type of accounts: 403bs, 401ks, IRAs, 457s. And the money grows tax deferred all the years between now and retirement. And then in retirement, when we pull money out of these accounts, that's when you have to pay the taxes on these. And it is treated typically like a retirement asset, meaning you get to control when and how much money to pull out of these. And because of that, there's some more planning and strategy involved to make sure that we're doing the best thing for you. And the green quadrant here is the opposite. So here you put in after-tax dollars, they grow tax deferred, and then in retirement, as you pull money out, you get both the principal and interest tax-free. And these type of accounts looks like Roth IRAs, muni bonds, cash value life insurance. I'm going to pause here for just a second just to let you guys know that if you don't sell all of these different things, I'd maybe tailor the inside internals of these to things that you do sell or things you are willing to help people out with inside of here. For your reference, of course, annuities, mutual funds, stocks, all of those can be sold inside of these tax wrappers. So know that just about everything in here you'll be able to sell. It just depends on what you're willing and wanting and able to do for these clients. Now, hopping back into the presentation for a second, I typically go over and say, if you haven't decided which one you should be contributing to, or met with a financial advisor that says this one is specifically the best for you based on your circumstances, I'll be able to help you make that recommendation. I'll be able to tell you how much money you're going to need in retirement assets to fill any income gap in your planning here. The next step of this retirement circle is really about the transition phases, and we call them the miscellaneous area. They can come in the form of different life insurance, health insurance, long-term care insurance, and I'll go through those piece by piece. So I'll say this is how we transition life insurance from employment to some type of permanent life insurance. And that can take a couple of different forms. Of course, it can take the form of GULs or IULs, and it can also take the form of final expense depending on the client that you're talking about. Transitioning health insurance typically means from employer coverage either over to short-term medical or Obamacare, or if they're 65 and older or disabled, we'll use Medicare for that, and I'll kind of know at that point how old of a person I'm talking to. Also, then we'll dive into long-term care and mention that we can help them transition from having things like disability insurance that protects your ability to earn an income. Very similar on the long-term care side. It protects your ability to pay for things like a nursing home and assisted living facility. So if you have retirement assets, we protect them from places like the nursing home and assisted living facility. So besides all of that planning that I just mentioned, was there anything else or in addition to that that you wanted to make sure that we tackled as well? And so here I'll pause. It's an open-ended question. What I'm looking for is for them to say, yes, I have this, yes, I have that, or say, no, all of that sounds good. Now I've got them roped in. Wherever it was a pension lead, it was a life insurance lead, it was a health insurance lead, doesn't matter. Now I've got them wrapped into, I'm going to do all of that planning for them. The majority of folks are just fine with that. They're happy to go over all of that because almost nobody does that for them. Not the Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Ed Jones, Ameriprise, you name it. There's not a whole lot of folks that can tackle all of these issues that you can probably tackle having an insurance license. So with that, I think it's super important that you go over all of the aspects that you can help them with, and that you have a solid first presentation to go over with them. If I feel like they're not understanding some of this, I'll bring up the second page. Sometimes I do it just to have them understand the retirement planning a little bit better, and that is going to be the income gap, and I'll just briefly describe that for you guys so that you understand what to do during the income gap here. So what this is it basically shows them in the blue area, we've got their income going up and up during their working career, and then they get all the way to retirement, and now they're going to collect just their guaranteed lifetime income. source, whether that's pension plus Social Security or maybe just Social Security. It's typically going to be half or 50 or 60% of what they were earning prior to, and we'll be able to help them calculate it. But graphically, they also need to understand there's a big piece up here that says income gap. That's what they're missing. That's what they used to earn, and now in retirement they're not guaranteed to earn that anymore. And so for most folks, they're going to use retirement assets to fill this income gap. So when I'm explaining that to the client, I do it just like that. I say, this is your income over your course of your career. Your income is going up and up. Then you get to retirement, and then you're going to collect your pension and Social Security. That might only be 50 or 60% of what you were earning, and that's what creates that income gap. So my job is to help you solve that income gap and put some math behind that and say, what do you need to save now? How much are you going to need by that time? What is that retirement asset at that time going to create income-wise for you? And will you be able to survive comfortably based on your expenses at that time? And we have a whole formula in a separate video that goes over how to do that on the case design once we've gotten all of that information. Once they give you the go-ahead, say, no, that sounds good. Let's go over everything that you just mentioned. Remember how I phrased that question. It's very important. I say, is there anything else or in addition to this that you want to go over in this meeting as well? I'm looking for a no answer here, and I want that because that gives me permission to do the whole thing here. If they say yes, then we're going to do all of this plus whatever else they want help with. And if I got to do a little Google research or whatever it is, happy to do that. I like to be more knowledgeable as well. So that's typically how I present my side of this first appointment, and I can usually get away with 3 to 5 minutes of this quick monologue. Hey, my name's Tim. I'm a comprehensive financial advisor. This is what I'm here to do to help you with. And I go through this retirement circle, and sometimes I also go through this income gap as well, just to help them frame, these are the pieces I'm going to go over. And then I hop right into the fact finder with no hesitation. Okay, that sounds great. So what is your date of birth? And then I'm hopping into all of the things that we've covered in the fact finder. So once you have, and I'm going to give you a little bit more background here, once you have gone over this first appointment and gathered the fact-finding information, then we'll work on case design and second appointment, but that's really it. So the rest of the first appointment, besides the fact-finding, know that you're on record for being the most presentable that you possibly can be. You're going to give them some knowledge sometimes, whether that is through distribution strategy, bucket strategy, paycheck or playcheck. Maybe sometimes it's your education of pension or Medicare or whatever life insurance situation they're going through. You want to be generally helpful. And what I mean by that is you're going to give them not specifics, but general details of this is how GULs typically work. I think they're going to be very appropriate for you. I work with about 150 different companies. I'm going to go shop around, figure out the best price and best underwriting based on your guys' situation, whatever it happens to be. You want to present that you have some knowledge on this topic, and then just set the next meeting. It's very, very important. This is the most important part of the first meeting. Besides being presentable, knowledgeable, and helpful with all of these things, the most important part is going to be to set the next day and time. Most people are creatures of habit. What I typically like to do is say, okay, it is Wednesday at 11:30 here, and that's the time I've called you today. Would that work for you next week if we did Wednesday at 11:30 again? And most people are creatures of habit. That's typically going to work for them. That's typically going to work for you because that's what you've blocked out here as well. So that's a pretty easy one. If you need to reschedule outside of that, pick and then just open and ask them, okay, what day and time works best for you, and go back to your calendar for that. That's how I like to run these because I want to control my calendar. If you don't set that next appointment after going through that fact finder and going through this first initial presentation, you will not have that second meeting. They will blow you off. I've done this a million times with a million different kinds of leads. It's highly, highly important that you go through this, you present everything that you're going to go through them. That way you're able to go through a complete fact finder. Once you've gone through that complete fact finder in the first appointment, then you're going straight into setting that next appointment. appointment. So a couple of conditions here. If we know that after the fact finder they have no money, there's no real opportunity for us, the sale is going to be very small or easy, say hold on a sec, I'm just going to do a quick little research for you and come up with my recommendations right now. You can end that first appointment. So if it is $20 a month, you know, a 20 or 100,000 term life insurance for 20 or 30 bucks a month, I would just do that right then and there. If it is $50 or $100 a month, flow into a retirement account, whether it's IRA or Roth or non-qualified, I would just do that right then and there. I would not hold a second meeting for that. You're wasting your valuable time at that point. But if you do realize that there is going to be a more complex case, whether it is an IUL and they do have a few hundred a month to put towards something, or whether you've uncovered 20,000, 50,000, couple hundred thousand of retirement assets, at that point you are scheduling the next meeting. Scheduling the next meeting does a couple of things for you. It gives you time to do the preparation needed to come up with that planning. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. I can probably do most of that on the fly if I had to. I still recommend doing the second appointment for anything moderate or complex with that. The reason being is when you call people at the exact day and time that you tell them that you're going to call them, you look extremely reliable. If you do that not once but twice over a period of time, like a week, they have a lot of faith and rapport and trust in you. And so it's really important to kind of bridge that. Now, for the people that have millions of dollars, sometimes we will have to do the second appointment. I'll ask for the close in the business. They'll say, no, I got an XYZ, you know, it's just going to be rebuttals, hesitations, excuses, stall tactics, whatever. You're going to have to overcome all of those, and we can go over those in another video. But at the end of the day, it's really all about making sure that we have enough appointments so that they have enough rapport and trust built up that they can say yes once we've fully explained a plan to them. So that's it for the first appointment. I think you guys should be pretty set if you memorize or practice or rehearse this circle. Do it a couple of times, do it on your spouse, do it on your friend, do it with me, doesn't matter. Do this second one if you need to. In addition to these things in the first appointment, I will sometimes use, and maybe I'll save this for the next video, but I will sometimes also use a sequence of returns. And the reason I bring up the sequence of returns is if they have another financial advisor and I need to show more education in this sequence to position myself as the comprehensive financial advisor as compared to the Ed Jones guys, just their investment guy, and I'm the comprehensive financial advisor. If I'm trying to make differentiations, I will go further in my process, whereas typically I do save that sequence of returns for the second appointment when there is retirement assets. Of course, when you uncover those retirement assets, you're going to ask a couple of things that are going to be very important, like can you send me over the statement? I want to input that in your plan and make some extrapolations of what this will grow to by your retirement age, and at that retirement age and what that grows to. Will that provide you the income plus your other guaranteed income sources? Will that be enough for you at that point in time? And of course, I've gained all of their expenses and everything else I need to do that calculation. So that's how I phrase that, and then hopefully they're emailing me between the first appointment and second appointment, or right there on the spot if they have access to this via PDF on their computer, the information on any other Ed Jones, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Ameriprise, AXA, Horace Mann, whatever investment vehicles or companies that they have right now. And then I'm able again to do that casework. You'll see sometimes in between the first appointment and second appointment, they promise you they're gonna send you this or that, whether it's a social security statement or whether it is those investment statements, or whether it's more information on a life insurance policy. And you have the choice here. If they do not get that back to you, maybe the day before that meeting, because you've typically set this a week out. Now, in the cases that I don't set that a week out, it's pretty rare. Sometimes if I know it's a flow and they just weren't ready with the information, beneficiary or account routing number or whatever it was, I'll set the appointment for the very next day. I want a rapid fire. I don't need to build trust. I've already built it. It's already a small case. I want it off my plate as soon as possible. But in the longer term situations where you're setting this out 7 days from now, a week from now, you are going to want to make sure that they've sent you everything that you need to by that 6th day or so, just to make sure that you have a day or some time on that 7th day to make sure that you've done the case design. You've either called me or you've done the case design on your own to make sure that you have have appropriate recommendations for that 7th day. If they have not gotten it to you by that 6th day, I usually send an email reminder, hey, could you get this to me today? We have this appointment tomorrow. We planned on going over XYZ, and I'd like to put that in your planning like I told you I would, so that I can be able to do that. Would you be able to send that to me now, or should we reschedule this for a few more days out? That's how I phrase those type of things. I think the communication that you have between the first appointment and second appointment is really important as well. You need to have that dialed in. You need to be precise. You need to be accommodating, and not, hey, you didn't send me this and you told me you would type of a deal. You want to be extremely professional, extremely lenient. You don't know what these people have going on in their personal lives, in their work lives, everything else that's going on with them. And so you just want to be accommodating. Hey, I didn't get this. I wanted to be able to put that in your planning so that I can make my best recommendations for you. Could you give that to me today, or could we reschedule for a few more days if that'd give you enough time? Also, for the people that I think weren't totally prepared or totally able to get all of the information, if I've determined in the first appointment, and this is where notes are really helpful in the first appointment, if I've determined that they're not going to be able to get some of this on their own, if I feel like they can't navigate SSA.gov to get me that social security information, or if I feel like they were too scared to call Ed Jones or whatever, this is where I will give them an out. I can either do this on the very first call, or I can do it in the emails if I haven't gotten the information by the time I needed it. And I can say, we can still hold that second meeting, and I will help you either navigate SSA.gov for you, or with you rather, or also, we can do a joint conference call to this Ed Jones, to this Horace Mann, to whoever it is, to get that information. On those conference calls, really important that you are trained, experienced, and knowledgeable. They will say some crazy things when you do those calls between clients. First, they're going to verify the client's identity. Second, they are going to ask the client's permission if it's okay to talk about their account with you on the phone as well. So I typically don't prepare my clients for that question. They usually have trust in me to be able to help them out because they don't have that information, and so that's why I'm there on the call with them. So you can offer that, but I would say only offer that if you are willing and ready to be able to follow up with that and do that conference call confidently with those folks. They will say things like, I've been on the phone with, I won't name drop because that'd be bashing the company a little bit, but a not great annuity carrier that does 403Bs, we'll just leave it there at that, that basically has committed fraud, lied, claimed that they didn't have a relationship sharing agreement between the school district or the police department or whatever I'm going through in that particular moment, and or say that this account is not able to be transferred, etc. And so if you are not extremely knowledgeable, experienced, and prepared, some of those things will catch you off guard, and you'll look like not great in front of your client when you're on that conference call. And so to have the confidence to say, no, you're wrong, I need your supervisor, you're not giving the correct information, makes you look like the hero to the client. But again, those come up about 50% of the time when you're on these calls, or at least they do for me. So it's really important that you either are trained and experienced on that type of call, or working with a professional that understands how to get that information. And again, all of that is for the purpose of, hey, we need all of this for the planning purpose. This is the information I told you I was going to go over. It has to do with all of your income sources, all of your retirement assets, and all of your transitionary insurance benefits. So once I've gotten all of that, then I'll come back and do that second appointment. Again, sometimes you can wrap that up in the first appointment, so don't skimp out on those. If you know that second appointment is going to be a waste of your time, or maybe you do a couple of these and go, gosh, I probably didn't need to hold that second meeting, just stop doing that in the future. There's no reason to waste your time. The only time I use a second appointment is where I know that there is a commissionable sale that's going to be over $1,000 for me. Is generally my cutoff. If it's less than that, I'm going to try and close on that very first appointment, just to make sure that it's worth my while. I don't need to be holding multiple appointments for itty-bitty small deals when the clients are typically prepared to make those decisions. So that's it for the first appointment. I think those are all the main details that you should be getting out of this video. Again, if you need someone to go through this, if you have been stuck in your rut, have your own presentation, have been doing it for a long time, may be hard to transition to something more comprehensive like this. So if you need me to do that for you, you for a few times until you get comfortable, until you're finding those big cases on your own. I'd be happy to do that just to make sure. In going through that, I always say a sample size needs to be large enough to be able to make decisions. So when I'm working new lead sources or working with new advisors on this planning, we need to work with probably at least 20 clients. So in my practice, I go through and I'll have a full calendar most of the time. That means 30 or 40 brand new appointments that can last up to an hour each, and that's a ridiculous amount. So my calendar does get that full from time to time. Typically I do like to work way less, 4 hours to 10 hours a week, but there are definitely times like the end of the year here where everybody is looking at what to do with their retirement accounts, everybody's looking at what to do for their health insurance for the coming year, and we just get a little bit slammed. So it's really important that we go over all of that detail, all of that information, and are making the best recommendations for folks. But it's also important that you've got that full pipeline and that you have at least 20 calls on doing something like this before you determine if it's working for you or not, to have that experience. Any one client or any one prospect might be an odd one, and so if you're doing at least 20 of these before saying, yes, this is working for you in your practice, or no, this isn't working out so great, what do we need to do to tweak it to make it a little bit better? We need at least that many to make that sort of determination. So when you're doing these, as you're starting them off fresh by adding in these pieces, hopefully if you were just going in there and you were looking at the one thing you were trying to present or get a sale on, this will open up your mind into, hey, we can actually talk to them about how their pension and Social Security are going to affect their overall planning. This is how we gather all of the other retirement assets that they might have for all of these other annuities and security AUM opportunities. This is how we come up with the opportunity to sell health insurance, life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, all of those important things. So without doing this comprehensive type of first appointment, you're not going to get any of those other opportunities that might come along once a year instead of coming along 2 or 3 or 4 times a day. So that's the difference that this will make for you, is it opens up all of the doors, because people either say yes, they want all this and more information, or no, all of this information that you've just mentioned sounds great. So again, make sure you're phrasing it like that, and I think I'll wrap up this first appointment video here, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks.